So everyone, welcome. And today we wanted to really follow up on the two main things. One is ESG, and two is who really runs the world. Okay, so the first one, the ESG issue, environmental, social governance. Let's say you bought stock in Philip Morris. Well, they're called Altria now. You know, the cigarette maker. What do you expect them to sell? Cigarettes. You know, people buy a lot of cigarettes. It's an addictive thing. You expect to get profits from cigarettes. Fine. Let's say you bought stock in Exxon, BP, Shell, big oil companies. What do you expect them to do? To invest in oil projects and get money from oil. Sadly, that's not what you're going to get. And the reason is we have the real people that control the world forcing oil companies to go green. Now, you would say, oh, that's a nice thing, have a bit of green. No. They're forcing them to stop drilling. They're forcing them to sell off assets, and they're forcing them to take that money and invest it in unprofitable, absolutely no profit, loss-making green stupidities like charging ports or wind farms, things like that. Now, why would a company whose only purpose, what is the purpose of a company? It's to benefit its shareholders, to give them dividends regularly, to increase the share price. But what have these companies done? They've gone, no, we don't care. That is our main duty. Our duty is to our shareholders. They've gone, our duty is now to go green. Now, why would you do that? Only if your main shareholders have forced you to do that. So let's take an example by the first woke big oil company, which was BP. And they decided firstly, they got rid of 30% of their revenue, which from Russia, right? Russia was 30% of their revenue. But because of the whole Russia-Ukraine, they basically got rid of 30% of their revenue, 20% of their profits, like that. Gone. It's now not there. Then they said, we're going to sell even more, another 20%, in order to go into, now they're the biggest electric charging company in Britain, right? And they're going into hydrogen fuel and all this green stuff that makes zero money, that loses money, in fact, requires a huge amount of investment and doesn't make any money, and will not make any money, okay? And we're going to do this, absolutely burying their shareholders. Shell was forced to do, again, Shell resisted. They were forced to do the same thing. And the number one, this is the unbelievable, this is the shocker. Exxon held out. Their management said, no, we are not going woke. We're not investing in green. We are focused on drilling. We're focused on giving money back to our shareholders. What happened? A company called number one energy company, which owns just 0.02% of Exxon, a trivial amount, made something in the board, got 2 new board members appointed, right? Out of 10, 2 were appointed from this tiny. How is that possible? How could you do that? Because they're the support of the 2 biggest pension funds who invest in Exxon, who own a lot of Exxon, much more than 20%. And who are they backed up with? Guess who? BlackRock and Vanguard. Yes, the company that owns 20% of every single company in America, and also invest money. And where do they get their money? From the pension funds. And they, activist investors, went and told this tiny little hedge fund, Energy Number One, you're going to get the 2 board. It's basically a farce, a shell game. They're not really doing anything. They're just doing the bidding of BlackRock and Vanguard, and got the 2 board seats, took down the entire management team, fired everyone else, put a new management team that said, yes, we're going to do exactly the woke green agenda that you want. We are going to sell off profitable assets. We're going to destroy the dividend stream for our shareholders. We're going to destroy the share price of our company in order to go woke. Now, guys, are you seeing this? So BlackRock and Vanguard, which we did the video before, we go and see it, who controls the world. Now, BlackRock and Vanguard, how do they get to this position? Because they are called themselves passive funds, which means people invest with them and say, we want share in all the S&P 500, we want to share in all NASDAQ, we want to share in the Dow Jones. So they're forced to go, they go and buy them, and they sit back. They're not activists. They don't start changing and selling. You want them to buy every stock. They will buy every single stock in that in that index. Okay, so they're saying we're not activists, we're not deciding, we're not getting involved in companies. We just do what our investors tell us to do. But yet we see here clearly that that's not what they did. They went actively using their position, using their 20% ownership of these companies. 20% means you're an associate company of them, right? It means you are, you basically, it's kind of like a controlling of a company. It has to be reported on their financial statements. But because they split it up, BlackRock 10%, Vanguard 10%, so therefore they're not a controlling company. We explained this before. It's how they do the shtick. Then you've got State Street as well, another 5%. They're all three of them are exactly the same, right? And they all have inter-ownership. They each own each other. It's the same thing, okay? So it's true. Each one owns 10%, but basically they own 20%. And the pension fund's money, they use your money, taxpayers' money, to then go and force green agendas. Now, who's telling them to do this? Well, it's obviously the government. We've got the Democrats in power, and they are trying to do this green agenda. How are they going to get it through? How are they going to get that investment in those electric ports? How are they going to get investment in unprofitable wind farms? How are they going to get it? Well, we'll force companies to do so, but how am I going to do that? I know, I'm going to call my big buddies, BlackRock and Vanguard, who we give them preferential treatment when the government and the Fed are to buy corporate bonds, which is illegal for the Fed to do in 2020. They told BlackRock, you do it. Again, just a shell game. Just illegal for us to do it. You'll do it on our behalf. Okay. And you'll make loads of money from it because we're going to backstop you as well. So it's guaranteed free money for you. And we're telling you it's ridiculous. And so now we have big oil, private supposed capitalism we've got here. This is exactly out of the communist playbook. This is communism. All companies were owned by the government, right? This is the same thing. They laugh at China. This is exactly the same thing. You're telling big oil, go and do what we tell you to do. Go and force these companies. Imagine taking down the entire management company of Exxon, which was previously the world's biggest company for many, many years, telling them to go and get rid of their management, appoint new management that will implement green policies. This is where we are. I was shocked. I'm a BP shareholder. I was shocked. Why would you do that to me? Why would you destroy my value? Oh, because you do it on behalf of the big boys who control the big amount of shares. Another one of my videos, you have to know that shares are only traded 2 or 3%, right? Or maybe 5-6%. Those ones you see on the stock market. The rest are all owned by institutions, okay? That's basically the rest. 2-3% for weird companies. Let's go for 20% for others. But they're basically owned by institutional investors who are apparently passive. Now we see where this passive investment is getting us. That's why your 401k, your pension fund is going to then causing you to lose money, essentially. People should be protesting to their pension fund saying, why are you giving your money to BlackRock and Vanguard who are imposing these well, they'll go, BlackRock, it's not us. We didn't do it. It was Energy Number One. I've never even heard of this company. Energy Number One did it, 0.02%. Got 2 people on a board. Yeah. If you believe that, pigs are flying, right? They were behind it all. They do a shell, and the government is behind all of them. And it's all a little circle, and it's going to happen to everything. You think you're in a capitalistic model. Afraid to tell you, boys, it's communism 101.